How's everyone doing out there? So I'm kind of doing a new thing with this channel. For those who have watched my videos before, I've done a lot of like tech walkthrough stuff and different hacks, mostly Chrome and stuff. Chrome OS and as well as the Chrome browser. So do something a little different this time around. What I want to start doing is at least once a week, I want to do like a tech Q&A. So, so that's what this is. So just anything, any burning questions you have for computer science, technology, Chromebooks. I mean, the only thing at this point I don't have as much experience with as I'd like is probably Mac OS. But outside of that, I have experience with pretty much everything, to be honest. A little bit of everything, actually a lot of things, basically. So. I guess this is probably the first time I've actually showed my face on this channel, which feels kind of weird because I'm kind of a more naturally more like introverted kind of person, which is part of the reason why I don't usually show my face. I just have my voice and record my screen on either my phone or my Chromebook or whatever. So anyway, this is like the first time I've actually showed my face anyway. So my name's Rob, by the way. I am the guy behind this channel, and when I say the guy, I mean I am the only person doing these videos. I create the videos, I edit them, I upload them, I do everything. And most of everything I make a video about is things that I actually get hands-on with, pretty much everything at this point. I don't like to make videos that it just like feels like a rehash of some sort of TechCrunch article or something, you know, or Gizmodo. Nothing against those sources. They're actually really great blogs. TechCrunch, Gizmodo, XDA developers, all those guys are really great. But I don't want to feel like I'm just rehashing somebody else's information. So unless I can get hands-on with something and really try stuff out, odds are I'm not gonna be making a video about it, because I honestly don't see the point in that. There's plenty of other YouTubers that basically don't really know how this stuff works, that just make some sort of video and, oh yeah, see, I know what I'm talking about, and they really don't. They just kind of have like a really superficial like knowledge, you know, like, you know, I don't want to say Geek Squad, but like most people at Geek Squad, basically. I'm not a huge fan of them. They're some great guys, but most of them don't really know much. And I'm not saying I know everything, but let's just say I think it was Yogi who said he knows, you know, he knows more than the average bear. I know a whole heck of a lot more than the average bear. Let's just say that. You know, I've been around this technology. I've been mentored under people. The first guy I was mentored under was actually an IT guy before the term really even existed. His experience went all the way back to transistor radios, you know, back in whenever that was, a long time ago, you know, around, not quite when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, but a little bit after that. So the guy had been messing around with computers since, you know, before the internet existed, before they were really even called, widely at least called, computers. And from then on, I was mentored under some other people. Another person who has had a big influence on me is Dr. David Mallon, who is a professor at which is it? I almost said MIT, but it's actually Harvard. I took one of his courses online through the Harvard University CS50 program, which is an amazing program, by the way. And CS50 is just computer science 50. I don't know what I don't remember what the 50 stands for or what that's there for, but computer science. And Dr. Mallon is like one of the main guys there, and he's amazing. He talks a mile a minute, so he's a little hard to keep up with at times, to be honest, but his knowledge is bar none. His passion for computer science and technology is second to none. So I would highly encourage you seek that out. Again, Dr. David Mallon, Harvard University, and the program is called CS50. They have a few different courses under that program. I'm not quite sure how many, because they're probably adding programs all the time, or adding courses all the time to that. So anyway, so any tech Q&A, any questions you all have, I'll be on here for a little bit. And just shoot me a question, and I'll do my absolute best to answer it. For those of you who might just be seeing this pop up, my name's Rob, and I do the channel Mad Hat Hacking, and normally I do tech walkthroughs and how-to stuff, but just recently I decided I'm going to switch it up a little. I'm still going to be doing those kind of videos, but I'm also going to be doing a live tech Q&A. So any kind of computer science technology questions you have, from how do you use Crosh, to how what phone do I buy, what new smartphone do I buy. I'll do my absolute best to answer it. I have experience with a wide variety of different technology products, different operating systems. If you can think of it, I've probably tinkered with it. Outside of the only really notable exception to that is Mac OS. I do not have much experience with Mac OS. I do have experience with iOS, because I one time owned an iPhone, and I've owned a couple of iPads over the years, 2 or 3 iPads over the years. So I do have more experience with that. Not much experience with Mac OS, but outside of that, pretty much anything you could think of, I probably have, like I said, I've probably tinkered with it at some point. Okay, that's funny. So I'm sitting outside in this really nice little park-like area, and you could probably hear an engine noise in the background, sounds kind of like a lawnmower, but it's not a lawnmower. It is a tricycle, as in a 3-wheeled bike, one of those ones with 2 wheels in the back and a cart, or like a basket thing in between the 2 rear wheels, and the guy put a lawnmower engine in it, and he just went by. That was pretty funny. I would have showed you on camera, but I didn't want to make him feel funny, be pointing my phone at him. That was pretty funny though. I've heard of guys doing that, but it sounds incredibly dangerous. I thought the guy was going to come back and I was going to try to show you, but he didn't. He's gone. I heard him. He's buzzing around over there somewhere, but There was a guy who went by a few minutes ago. He had one of those tricycle bike things, and he had in the basket on the back, he had a lawnmower engine. It's quite funny. It sounded like a weed whacker or something, or yeah, he's gone. Dang it. I've heard of guys doing that, but I'm either not that gutsy or not that crazy, one or the other, because putting 5 horsepower or whatever, typical lawnmower is probably about 5 horsepower. Putting 5 horsepower in the back of a bike does not sound like a good idea. To give you some idea, most motorized bikes are going to have about a third of a horsepower or half a horsepower. Some of them, like the more powerful ones, might get to a 1 horse engine. So putting 5 horses in that thing, even though it's a bigger bike frame, cannot be safe. So for anyone who didn't catch what I said in the beginning, so basically this is a live tech Q&A. It's a new thing for my channel. It's also the first time I've really shown my face on this channel, because I'm definitely very much introverted. Actually, my personality type is, INFJ, and I actually took a few different personality tests, and apparently I'm INFJ, and the I stands for introverted. So normally I don't really show my face on here. I just kind of record my screen, record my voice, and leave it at that. But I think a lot of people right now have a lot of questions about how to use tech products, from smartphones, laptops, Chrome OS, things like that. And honestly, there's not a whole lot of people out there really answering the questions in any kind of real way. They're really just, at best, scraping the surface. Like, I've seen so many different tech blogs and tech channels, and even the best of them, even the very best of them, tend to really just scratch the surface. The only one I know of, at least notably on YouTube, that does better is Linus Tech Tips. Those guys, but that's really mostly like their niche is mostly with gaming, and particularly gaming PCs and things like that. They do talk about other stuff, but that's their real focus. So there's a lot of things they don't cover, but which is fine, because that's what their channel's about. It's mostly directed at gamers. But in general, most people just do not really understand this technology, and even the people who are talking about it all over YouTube or all over, blogs or any other kind of social media you might want to think of, so many of the people don't really understand. They just don't understand how this stuff really works. And because of that, they tend to give out very misleading and very just downright incorrect information. Like one of the things that's always kind of been a bugaboo for me is when you hear news reporters, and I've heard educated people who should know better will say, they'll talk about what they call the dark web, the dark web, or like it's some scary thing where all these criminals hang out and do whatever. First and foremost, you have to understand about the dark web is there actually is no such thing. Technically speaking, there's no such thing as the dark web. It's a made-up term that it applies to what are called hidden networks on the internet. On the internet, so the internet, don't think of it in terms of the virtual bit where okay, I have a smartphone in my hand. That's a physical object, but I'm accessing YouTube with it, which is it's a website, so it's a virtual space essentially. That's not the internet. That is on the YouTube. In this case, is on the World Wide Web, and the internet refers to the physical components, the physical infrastructure that is needed to make the World Wide Web and other networks possible. So to make all that interconnectivity. So everything from, you have the exchange points. There's a really big one in Manhattan, for instance, big windowless building. I think Weird History did something on that, or it might have been Half as Interesting. One of those two guys did something on this big window. It was Half as Interesting, now that I remember. But they have a big windowless building in Manhattan. People wondering what it is. It's an internet exchange point. So what happens is you got cables. You got these big, huge cables that crisscross every or most of the major oceans. It does not cross, as far as I know, the Pacific, because it's just too damn big. But every other ocean, well, maybe not the Arctic either, because ice. But figure everything but the Pacific and the Arctic. So you have the Atlantic, you have them crossing the North Atlantic from either the US or Canada to Europe. Then you have the Southern Atlantic from usually from Brazil, but other parts of South America as well, going to Africa typically. I think a few of those might go to Europe, like maybe Spain or something, but most of those are going to go from South America to Europe. And then the Indian Ocean, they're going all different directions. There are many cables, as far as I know, from East Africa, so the eastern side of Africa, going to India, going to Australia, going different places. Indonesia, I imagine, would be on that list somewhere. And fun fact, that is actually one of the reasons why it can take longer to access sites that are hosted in places like Japan or China or East Asia, basically, because if you're in the US at least, that signal that has to travel around the entire globe practically, because there are no cables crossing the Pacific Ocean, at least at this time. And so it has to cross. Let's say if you're where I am in California, and I'm going to access a site that's hosted over in Japan, that has to travel across the US, across the Atlantic Ocean, across either Africa or Europe, and then across mainland Asia to Japan. So even though these signals are, of course, traveling, they're many of them are fiber optic based. Actually, all of the transoceanic cables are fiber optic. So, speed of light, essentially. There are still different delays where the signal has to get from a cable to an exchange point, and, different, all down the chain until it gets to your Wi-Fi router. So that's really where the latency and delay comes in. But it is actually kind of fun because the latency can be quite long if you're talking about places like Japan, because of what I just mentioned, where it has to travel around the entire planet practically. So, fun fact. But as far as the dark web, so I mentioned the dark web, which is not a thing. It does not exist. What do exist are hidden networks. So you have this physical infrastructure in place that is what we call the internet. And on top of that internet are various types of networks. You might have private company networks called intranets, but of course the biggest of these is the World Wide Web, www World Wide Web. That is the biggest, obviously, network. Some people refer to the World Wide Web as the clear net, but that isn't even quite a correct view of it, because a lot of what's on the World Wide Web would be part of what's called the deep web. So deep web is another thing that people get really off. People think, oh, the deep web is just stuff that's not indexed by search engines. Well, technically, yes, but that's really not that's not a good view of it. So the deep web, so you have the World Wide Web, but then you have the portion of the World Wide Web that is called the deep web. The deep web is, the best way to think of this is anything you cannot directly access from a search engine. So, for instance, Facebook I can access from Google or any other search engine, right? I can access Facebook, and I can access many different pages, public pages on Facebook. I can't, for instance, Google somebody's name. This might depend on how their security is set up, but typically you're not going to be able to Google somebody's name and access their friend list off of a Google search. You would have to You would have to be friends with them. You would have to, depending on again how their profile is configured, you would have to be friends with them, or you would have to You'd have to have some sort of connection to them, essentially, a friend of a friend, maybe. So that's behind what is called a wall. So there's a wall that prevents you from just Googling someone's name and accessing their friend list, accessing their phone number, accessing any of their other more private information that they may have saved to their Facebook profile. So I guess you might call that one a friend wall, because you need to be friends with them before you can access some of that information. And another good example is Netflix. So Netflix, well, really any streaming site, but everybody knows about Netflix. So I can access Netflix's homepage, at least, off of Google search, of course. So that's surface web, that's not deep web. But their streaming library I can't access without I have to have an account, first of all, but then I also have to pay for a subscription with Netflix. So that is what you would call a paywall. So you have what I'm calling a friend wall with Facebook. I can't see people's friend lists without and other private bits of information about them without first becoming friends with them. So friend wall. That's probably what we should call the wall in the, that we're building with between us and Mexico. But should write smiley faces and call it the friend wall. That might sell it better. I'm just saying it might make people feel better about it. But anyway, and then you have paywalls like Netflix's streaming libraries or Disney Plus or Hulu or whoever, their streaming libraries. Those are paywalls. Another good example is actually YouTube private and unlisted videos. So obviously YouTube itself and in most of the videos on YouTube are accessible via a search. So those are going to be on the surface web. But the deep web part of YouTube really kind of kicks in when you have people who have uploaded videos as either unlisted or as private. So private videos means, last I checked, private videos meant that only you yourself were able to view them, and I think you can somehow give somebody else permission to view them. But typically, it's just basically you upload it for yourself. Unlisted videos are a little more useful than that. They're only accessible via a link, so they are not publicly searchable. You have a link that functions effectively as a passcode, and you can text or email that to people, and they would then be able to access said video. And so that's probably something that we can consider deep web, because it is not, again, accessible via search engine. And I'm not sure what kind of wall you would call that. Pass link wall, maybe. But the dark web, or what people call the dark web, well, you have the internet, you have the physical infrastructure that we all use every day, which can be everything from the data towers, your Wi-Fi router, the fiber optic cables running underneath the world's oceans, all that stuff. All that's the internet. Well, then there's this bit that is known as the dark web, which is a made-up term because there's no dark web. What it is are what are called hidden networks. Hidden networks. Sometimes they're called dark nets, which is probably where the term dark web came from. But dark nets and dark web are not the same thing, because notice it's dark nets or hidden networks, plural. There's more than one. There's many of them. I don't know how many of them. I haven't counted. Probably hundreds if I had to guess, but or at least dozens. The most well known of these is the Tor network. Tor is TOR, stands for the Onion Router, and it was put together by a very much non-criminal type people, and that's where this, the whole stereotype of, the dark web, that's where criminals go to do stuff and do crap, basically. Well, no. There's a lot of crap that does happen on various types of dark nets, including Tor and I2P and others, but there's a lot of really good stuff that happens too. It's just like the internet. There's a lot of illegal things that happen on the internet. That doesn't mean the internet, on the World Wide Web. There's a lot of different, very much illegal things that happen all the time on the World Wide Web. That doesn't mean the World Wide Web is bad, just as much as there's a lot of illegal things that happen on roads. People drive drunk, or they drive high, or whatever. That doesn't make driving bad. So just because hidden networks are used for criminal activity, that doesn't make them wrong in any way. That just means that that people use them for criminal activity. That's just all there is to it. So these hidden networks they're hidden, as the name might imply. They're not something that you can just simply access with your Google Chrome or any other type of normal browser. There are some browsers, some lesser known browsers, that may be able to access hidden networks. They may have added that as a feature. I would imagine Firefox might have a plugin for that. But any of the more mainstream stuff like Safari, Chrome, Edge, any of that stuff is not going to have an ability to access hidden networks. And so you need basically a special web browser, or at least in the case of Tor. Other hidden networks, there's different means of accessing them, but Tor, I'm going to stick with Tor since Tor is the more well-known of the two. And so what Tor is the Onion Router, and it is functionally similar to a VPN, where it takes traffic from your machine, whether your phone or your laptop or what have you, and it routes it through, I believe it's 3 servers. So Well, it depends actually on what kind of traffic you're doing. But if you are, say, surfing in the Tor darknet, then you are going to bounce between three different servers. So you're going to have, they're called nodes. So it's going to encrypt the information on your side, send it to the first node, and then it's going to go to another node, and then a third node. And if you are accessing a site that is on the World Wide Web, as opposed to being on the darknet, then on the Tor darknet, that is, that it is going to that third node is going to be called an exit node, because your information is then exiting to the World Wide Web. Which, by the way, just a little recommendation, a little FYI, I don't recommend accessing the World Wide Web using a darknet browser. It kind of seems, first of all, it's basically pointless. Darknet browsers are quite slow compared to regular browsers, and it's not that it's exposing your information any more than it normally would be. It's just basically pointless. You're undermining the reason for using an encrypted browser if you're going to just access World Wide Web stuff. You'd probably be better off using a VPN. And which, by the way, I do also recommend using a VPN, even if you are using Tor or another darknet browser, because what it does is it adds an extra shell of encryption, first of all. So in case something goes wrong with the encryption on Tor, then you're going to have the encryption from your VPN. But also, what it does is it actually disguises the fact that you're even using Tor to begin with. So when your VPN establishes an encrypted tunnel, what that's going to do is, your internet service provider or any other anyone else, anything else, any other agency person, if they look at that traffic, they're only going to see the VPN. So let's say Nord, because that's what I use. I use NordVPN. So they're going to see Nord. They're not going to see Tor. If I'm using Tor by itself, they will see that I'm using Tor. They won't see what I'm doing because it's an encrypted anonymous browser, but they will see the fact that I am using it. And in some areas, probably not as much in the United States, I would like to think that. But in some countries, it can cause suspicion on the part of government agencies, and it can cause basically issues, just even if you're using a darknet browser, even if you aren't doing anything wrong at all. So just be aware of that, and I do recommend a VPN. And generally speaking, for VPNs, I recommend finding one that is not based in the United States, because unfortunately our laws and our leaders largely suck at this point. So when it comes to any kind of web privacy or security, so I highly recommend, in the case of Nord, they are based, last I checked, in Panama. And so I recommend finding a VPN company that is based outside of the U.S. Now, they are going to have servers within the U.S. There's not really much you can do about that, but at least based out of the U.S. means that it would be very difficult for the United States government to obtain logs from that VPN provider, especially if they're in Panama, because Panama is not exactly on the best terms with the U.S. right now. So their most likely reaction to a request for logs would be, up yours, basically, because they're kind of not happy with us right now. So that functions to my benefit, at least, for now. But anyway, with darknets, again, they weren't created for criminal activity. They weren't intended for criminal activity, and the majority of what happens on there is not criminal activity. So all of that is false stuff that has been put out by mostly various types of news organizations. It's false information that has been put out there by people who really just don't understand how this stuff works and probably have never used it to begin with. Again, yes, you can do criminal things on darknets, and darknets, frankly, do make it easier to do certain types of criminal activity. You're using a browser that's anonymous and encrypted. You're using, in many cases, Bitcoin or some other digital currency that is, Bitcoin isn't totally anonymous, but it is difficult to trace as much as people think. It can just be traced on a dime. It is not as easy to trace as people think. And it, because I know that's made news lately. Oh, they can trace Bitcoin now. Well, use a freaking anonymous wallet. What are they going to do then? Trace it back to your wallet that doesn't have your name on it? It makes no sense. But either way, if you're worried about it, you can also use, I believe it's Monero, that is untraceable at this point, at least. So my point in saying all that is, we have to be aware of what these things are, but we don't have to be frightened. You don't have to worry about what the dark net. Oh, there's all those criminals out there. Well, there's criminals out there on the regular web. There's criminals out there in the real world. So I would be far more concerned about that than what somebody might do on the dark net. I'd be far more concerned, honestly, at this point, about all this stuff, all these physical products like cars and toasters and whatever that have their own LTE connections or have Wi-Fi connections. Because I mean, if you think it's a bad thing if somebody hacks your computer, try when somebody hacks your freaking car and drives you off a ravine or something. That's a far worse thing than whatever somebody might cook up on the dark web. Yes, you can do weird stuff on there. I know, because in my research project, I did on the Tor darknet. I came across multiple different what are called darknet markets, which is a marketplace essentially for illegal goods, mostly illegal goods. So I was on there and I was a little bit shocked, and honestly, I found it kind of humorous that you're on this market that looks something like eBay, but I mean, you're seeing like methamphetamine, you're seeing stolen credit cards, stolen PayPal, false IDs, all kinds of crap like that on this darknet market. And I was actually laughing at it. I thought, oh my gosh, this stuff really exists. This crap really exists. Like, and I remember I showed my sister. I said, "Can you believe this? This is." I thought it was just hearsay, but this stuff is really out there. And so there are stuff out there. Is You could do illegal things on there. Basically, is what I'm getting at. You could do illegal things on there, but you can do illegal things in any context: World Wide Web, real world, social media, whatever. You can do illegal things anywhere and everywhere, and I don't think that should discourage the use of darknets. I think is what I'm getting at. With so many governments around the world, and just beyond governments, just private companies um, getting so greedy for information, for our personal private information, with so many governments being so cavalier about taking advantage of the rights of its citizens. I think technology like Tor and I2P and other types of dark nets that use encryption, that have that non anonymity and anonymity. I don't know why I can't say that, but that have that extra layer of security and privacy. I believe it's indispensable at times. It's incredibly useful at times, and we should not be afraid of it. So if you have any questions about this, please feel free to message me, comment on this video, and I'll either do another live session or just straight up make a video about it. So peace out, guys. I'll catch you in the next one.